Hey, welcome to Sacred Cow Barbecue. It's Thursday, January 7th, 2016. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm Patricia Aiken, an average host with exceptional guests. If you listen regularly, you'll have heard Ryan Bundy share the facts regarding the Dwight and Steve Hammond's abuse by the BLM in the Department of Justice a few weeks ago. Tonight, it's my pleasure to welcome rancher LaVoy Finicum to Sacred Cow Barbecue. He's going to fill in for Ryan Bundy. Ryan's involved. There's a big meeting going on. So, LaVoy, thank you so much for pinch hitting.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
LaVoy, you are no stranger to BLM abuse.
Well, actually, myself in Arizona, I'm doing okay. A few things we disagree on, but I've watched all my neighbors getting trounced, and so I'm standing on the principle. And so, yeah, I've been friends with Bundy for a while here. We're neighbors. I'm across the Arizona side of the border, and they're on the Nevada side of the border, and so we're here for the freedom of the people. And yes, that's right.
So your ranch is north when you come up the 15 through St. George over that way. So it's up that side of Arizona.
Yeah, I'm out on the Arizona Strip. It sounds like you're a little familiar with the area. Do you know the Trumbull area?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I'm out on the Arizona Strip, east of Mount Trumbull.
How do you like being up there with some grass?
Well, there's no grass; it's just snow.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, silly me. Yeah, I don't think it's been above freezing all week. Listen, what I want to do, because I know you folks are really busy, and maybe we'll get Ryan back another time. I know you know exactly what's going on, so I want to, actually 95% of what I know about the BLM, I have learned from many hours that I've spent with Ryan Bundy. He's been very generous with his time, and it's been invaluable to me to be able to distinguish the truth from misinfo and disinfo that's flooding the media again. So let's take a couple minutes and unwind the most outrageous lies first. First, I want to let you know, because it'll be easier coming from me, as a friend of the Bundys, that that Hammond Bundy is actually an agent provocateur.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh yeah, well that's all over the internet now.
Okay, no, he's a humble man trying to do the things he sincerely and honestly feels in his heart is the right thing to do. And so
yeah,
he's definitely no agent provocateur. No. I've seen a few of those around here, but he is not one of them.
Yeah, it's hard. You almost need a scorecard to figure out who everybody is. I know. Earlier today, there was a report by United Media Publishing, a known disinfo site, LaVoy. They published a story that 11 militia members had been arrested and charged with domestic terrorism. You missing anybody up there?
No, we're not missing anybody. It's increasing with people, but we're not missing any of those that we know. And so, in fact, I have heard of nothing of anything of that sort. So that is news to me, because everybody that I'm associated with are here and accounted for, but
no. They said they were arresting them as they came out of the site. LaVoy, when did you get up there?
No, they're not doing that. There's free access right now.
Okay. When did you arrive up there?
That Saturday morning.
That Saturday morning. Okay, excellent. So you've been there, and so let's clear up this. Oh, they took over a federal building. Thing. Let's go with that. Give me your take on that.
Well, of course. Well, let me just tell you, I was that first group that pulled in here on site. So when we got here, there was not a single soul here. Now, a federal building, in order to have federal property in a state, you must purchase it from the state legislature. That's very clear in Article 4, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution. And so they claim this to be federal land. They claim this to be federal buildings, yet they do not go through the law to purchase it from the state legislatures. And so they are not holding it legally. It's an illegal holding in our country.
Yeah, well, that's true, but it's a remote area. The building was not being used. You haven't disrupted anybody's work or anything like that, correct?
Oh, no. We are 30 miles or 40 miles somewhere from town. It is way out in the middle of nowhere. And one of the reasons that is really nice is that it keeps possible tensions away from families and homes and things like that.
Bringing up the tension issue, they've closed the schools up there, which I think is completely ridiculous. It's for the safety of the children. But
no, they didn't close the school for the safety of the children. They closed the school so they could use it to stage out of. They're using it to put in. The federal agents are coming in, and they're using those buildings to stage from.
I know. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's exactly what they're using it for. But, you can tell when the mainstream media and a lot of the alternative media is lying, because you just look 180 degrees in the other direction. I call it opposite land, and you'll come up with the truth. And so last night there was a town meeting. Did you folks get to
I did not attend the town meeting. There was others that attended that, but I was working here and unable to attend that.
Okay. I saw most of it on the live feed, and it's just I thought it was pretty heavily managed.
It was. Well, let me explain to your listeners.
Sure, go ahead.
Burns is where most all the federal employees live. But that's not just the community. The community is Harney County. I just sitting there talking to the residents. I came from the meeting talking to residents of Harney County, and these are his words. He says, Burns is where all the federal people live. And so that's federal. He says, but our community is huge. This county is huge, and we're all on the opposite side. Well, he didn't say that. He says, but we're not federal. And he says, we're supporting you. And so you go to the concentration of where the federal employees are, and then you hold the meeting there. But, the county is much more than just Burns.
Yeah, it was complete Delphi technique, if you asked me. Somebody just made a comment. They only say for the children when they are perpetrating against the people. That's really true. That's really true. And you know what made me laugh about that, if I wasn't so mad, hearing something like that, is because the Bundy men are probably the most tender men I know towards children. I mean, you go to the, when you're in the Bundy's front yard and it looks like a daycare center.
They have a soft and tender spirit. I've been around them plenty enough to know that they have a great concern for the weak and the simple, and they reach out to them. So they are definitely honorable men.
Yeah, well, that probably explains why they're so kind to me. Listen, LaVoy, the media is playing this as a standoff.
Well, how can it be a standoff when we have the place is open for the media is up and down, wandering around among us? They are embedded here, coming and going as they freely choose. Where is the standoff?
Yeah, I know. I say it's a protest. So yeah, what are you calling it?
Well, we're calling a place to work from. We come here to work, and that's what we're doing. This is where the ranchers and the families are coming to meet, and that's where we spend most of our time is speaking with these ranching families. They come here, we spend hours with them. That's where the Bundys are right now with these. They actually have committees that they have elected from this community. The community has elected these committees, and that's where right now they're visiting with the Bundys and on how to proceed forward with reclaiming their rights to the resources of this land.
Well, LaVoy, last night, of course, it was in Burns, and so you had all the paid people there coming and saying, testifying. There was only 2 people that got up and I think were for this and for the Hammonds in a legitimate way. And they were very well spoken, but man, they didn't want them getting any time, because one guy was really, really making a lot of sense, and they called time on him right away. And so,
wow.
Yeah, oh yeah, and it's to be expected. So I would say it was 2/3, militia go home. We'll take over from now. And some of them were being politically correct and saying, well, thank you. You brought this to our attention. But you're getting a lot of support out there. People are bringing meat and food and things like that to feed you folks, right?
Yes, and I really want to make a point. 2/3 say go home of that city, but most of the rural community is not doing that. But it's just not a republic where it's just one rancher saying, please help me. Why wouldn't we stand for just one rancher? But we've got if we got a third of the community saying stay and please help, why not do it for a third? Why not do it for one and one third? Definitely for one third. But isn't a republic about defending the rights of the individual? So let's defend the right of one or 300. You know, it could be, you could have 1,000 people in that meeting say go home, but if you have just one saying no, I need help, let's help the one. But you have many, many, many more of that. You have a third of that. You would have 300 say please help, and if 600 says no, go home. Okay, a democracy is a terrible thing. It's two wolves and a lamb sitting down to decide what's for dinner.
Exactly.
We're here for the one. You know, I didn't Christ say, you know, something about the one, the lost sheep. You know, leave the 99 and go help the one. It don't matter if there's only 300 saying we need help and 600 saying go home. It doesn't matter if there's just one saying please help me. Let's help our fellow man against the tyranny of the majority.
LaVoy, that's a great point. But I want to tell you, I know men that drove up there to be there on Saturday and did long drives, like 11, 12-hour drives up and back. And, you know, they didn't know what was going on because the other groups that they met with. And so tell me how it came down, because this is a big media brouhaha going about why that building was taken over and why the rest of the groups weren't appraised of that. Can you go over that?
Okay. Well, I'm driving up with Ryan Bundy, and we're going up to go support the Hammonds. And I figured I'm going to be home the next day, and Ryan thinks he's going to be home the next day. And we go up there, and just an hour before the support march, Hammond says we should do more than march. All we do is basically, I'm putting my own words to it, just that we hold signs and we march and we march and we hold signs and nothing changes, and the rights of man here are continuing to be trampled upon. And we were not. He was very eloquent, and he went through the list of efforts he went through to try to get redress. And finally says, we need to do more than that. He says, this is what we should do. He says, are you with us? You know, I rode with him once. I said, well, boys, I'll ride with you again. And so here I am. I'm glad I had an extra change of clothes.
You need a lot of clothes up there. It hasn't been above freezing yet this week. Here's the thing that people are talking about, and I would like your take on it. And Ryan and I started to talk about this earlier. You know, everyone has said, come up here, send men, please join us. And yet men have said to me, why am I going to go up there and risk my life and risk my liberty to be arrested or worse when the Hammonds aren't standing up for themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we're here to empathize and show support for them. And we really want to get them out of jail. That's one of the things we're working on, to get them out of jail. You knew that the prosecuting attorney resigned over this. You knew that, I'm assuming, or did you?
No, I didn't know he resigned.
Yeah, the one that prosecuted them with all this pressure come, that was told to me. I haven't read it myself, but I'm pretty sure it's accurate. That person or gal that prosecuted them, put them in jail, she resigned because of the pressure that's coming. So, see, things are happening.
Oh, excellent. I'm so glad to hear that, because the corruption in the Department of Injustice is just way over the top. And this isn't the only instance that I know of it. I mean, I know other good men that are in jail, are being threatened with jail, that lives have been ruined, who have not done one thing wrong. And so that's what and that's probably the most frustrating part about this. Folks have been getting some great media coverage. Ammon's been doing a great job. Ryan's been doing a great job. And they, you know, with the national media, like with Megan, what's her name? I can't. Yeah. And so, but nobody talks about what a bad trial that was, how corrupt the judge was that tampered with them, that it was the prosecution got 6 days and the defense got 1 day and wasn't allowed to put any information out there about why those fires were set.
Yep.
That it's standard ranching practice.
Yeah, it is very corrupt. And so when all avenues of justice of redress is ignored, then you need, the people themselves need to make a stand. And I do want everybody to know this is a peaceful stand. It was intended to be, has been, and we will do all in our power to make this peaceful. We do not want anybody pointing guns at us, and we don't, and we have no intention of pointing guns back. Let's just be peaceful, but let's have some justice for the Hammond family, and let's get the resources back to the people of Harney County. These natural resources belong to them. The logging, the ranching, the hunting, the access rights, the camping rights. They need to be able to have the access to the resources of their land and not be locked away by a federal. See, I think it's about 50% of Harney County is held by the BLM. 90% of my county, but 50% of this county, and they've closed it off. And Harney County has gone from the wealthiest county to the poorest county in the state because of what the federal government has done.
Well, what we've allowed them to do. We've been absentee landlords. And then we've come back, as a friend of mine says, we've come back to the house. The dogs have made a mess everywhere. The kids are running wild, and now we're complaining. But we've been absentee landlords and letting this go on for too long.
Yeah, we have not been vigilant. We have not studied the Constitution. We have been preoccupied with a myriad of other things. Making a living. Football, basketball. And as the government has grown and seized more and more land, wealth, and control, and now all of a sudden we wake up and we're in bondage, and it's going to be very difficult to take those chains back off. But unless you want to live in bondage, you need to begin to start unplucking the chains one link at a time.
Putting this government back in its box, one tentacle at a time.
Yes, and that's what it is. You need to understand who is the law abider, who's the law breaker. The federal government is running completely over its banks, over its bounds. Like you say, it's out of its box. And we're simply asking, because I believe in the government, I believe in the federal government, I believe in the state government. We need them. But they need to be law-abiding. They need to abide by the laws which we have placed upon them.
Right, instead of this Marxist takeover.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that are listening tonight, and I know they're going to jump when I say this, is that this is not a government. It's a corporation masquerading as a government. Our de jure government, the organic government in all these states is vacant right now, and we need to revive that and repopulate that so we can go back to having liberty and justice for all.
Absolutely. We need to be virtuous and brave, or we do not have freedom. You must be willing to stand up. You must be willing to understand what natural rights are. You must understand what common law is. You must be willing to be brave and to stand. Otherwise, you will lose it all.
Well, I don't know if you saw this article yet, and I'm going to assume that you haven't, but you may know this man. It came out of Reno, Nevada, and I want to thank my friend Richard for sending this to me tonight. It says, Nevada tribal leader 81 sues BLM for $30 million. The federal government seized Raymond Yowell's cattle, all 132 head, and hauled them across the state and sold them at auction. Then the U.S. Bureau of Land Management sent Yowell a bill for $180,000 for back grazing fees and penalties, and later garnished part of his Social Security benefits. Now, nearly a decade later, the 81-year-old former chief of the Western Shoshone National Council is fighting back. He's suing the BLM, the Treasury Department, and others for $30 million. Yowell claims the government violated his constitutional rights, broke an 1863 treaty, and saddled him with a debt that he doesn't know. Gotta love him.
That's like the Dan sisters. That same thing happened in 2002 to the Dan sisters. They came in, they seized their livestock, they broke the trees. It was in Ruby Valley, I believe, in Nevada. It was an atrocious thing. I wish I had been more educated back then. I wish I knew about it so I could have gone up and supported them. But I, like other Americans, have been slow to get up to speed on the Constitution and what's happening. I've been distracted myself, and so I'm trying to make up for being a negligent citizen and now that I have come to understand, now I'm acting. I'm trying to help do that which should have been done a long time ago.
something I always ask first-time guests on my show is, what woke you up?
Well, I always have had a deep burning for freedom. You know, when we're little kids, we say, "You're not the boss of me," And so I've always liked freedom. I never was a rebellious person, but when I saw the stand in Nevada, I went over and helped him. And then I had to sit down and I had to study the Constitution, and I found out that yes, indeed, that they were legally right. And then I was in a moral dilemma because I was paying grazing fees to the federal government. I go, wow, I'm upholding an illegal entity by my actions and by paying a grazing fee to somebody who's claiming something that they have no right to. And so I need to do one of two things. I need to sit down and shut up, or I need to quit paying it. So I sent a letter to the Solicitor General and said, I thank you, but I shall cancel all my contracts between me and the federal government, and I'll handle all my own range improvement. And certified letter, and just one paragraph, that's all it was, one simple paragraph. And they sent it back. I thought, that'll get lost over there, big old black hole. They sent that letter back, toed in hand, with the FBI agent and a BLM law enforcement agents from my county sheriff. So it did not get lost.
Ooh.
They were asked to be deputized, and they hired 3 more county BLM Rangers just for me out there. That's what, so because I wrote that letter, and just because I rode with my neighbor Cliven to get his cows back. And so this is across the West. This is a common thing that's happening. It's not just here. It's not just Nevada. It's and a whole group of ranchers in South Central Utah asked me to come up and speak to them about what I did, about how I canceled my grazing lease. And that room was like a church, and it was packed from side to side, wall to wall. And they asked me to talk about the Constitution and the legal terms of it, why I did it, how I did it. And when I was done, they said, let's sign that right now. And so, because they were so tired of jumping through this hoop, that hoop, just trying to keep their livelihood and not be cut down to where they're finally out of business. And so this is burning everywhere.
Well, that's true, and it comes down to those adhesion contracts that people sign, not knowing that what that's obligating
intimidated
them
to. It's starting to get routine, or they don't understand it. We're negligent in what is lawful, and then all of a sudden, when you wake up, you got to either be quiet or act. And I decided to try to be consistent with my beliefs.
Well, congratulations. We appreciate men of principle. I mean, we've all made mistakes. We've all been awake. I say the patriots have autism spectrum disorder. I mean, we all are on a spectrum, from like Fox News Republicans down here to Sunday school, and so on. And I'm a little more in the middle, but there's more people that are, more like on the Asperger's. They're high functioning autistics, but none of us really have the full answer yet. So here's my question, but so many ranchers have taken government handouts. That really obligates them.
Look, let me kind of explain what the grazing fees, how they work. The grazing fees, a portion of a percentage of it, I think it's like 60%, I can be wrong on that, goes to the federal government. The other 40% goes into a pot. And every year they take the money in this pot and they dole it out to help do range improvement for different ranchers. Okay, and so that's where most of that money comes from for the grazing, for some of that range improvement. But whenever we take handouts, I've been negligent. I didn't realize this, and so it's so easy to say, yeah, I could use a little help on that, and that's not okay. You can't, on one hand, ask help from the government, and on the other hand, say, hey, you can't tell me what to do. So, anyway,
the thing was when the grazing fees were first set up, the BLM came to the ranchers, if I'm not mistaken, and said, just pay us a little bit per head. We'll only take about 12% for management fees, and the rest will be given back to the ranchers, and you can sit on the board. I mean, that was a great idea. That was a great idea, and it wasn't oppressive. It wasn't until they started cutting down their AUMs or or the number of cattle that they could have, and putting them out of business and using those grazing fees to buy out the ranchers. And right now they're burning them out. And they're in here, and where you are right now, up there in Harney County, they flooded them out. And the Hammonds are again the only ranch left standing.
Yep, that is very true. That's very true. And when we violate the principle and say, federal government, please help me, then we have opened the tent for the camel to walk in. We need to stand on our own feet, take care of our own problems, and make sure the federal government gets back to Washington doing the business of the nation and get out of the county and get out of the state so that we, the people of the state and the county, can take care of our business here. And these, again, are grazing rights that we buy with our blood, sweat, and tears, and they don't belong to the federal government. They just do not.
Getting people to understand that, because the media just runs this machine. They're in a war for people's minds, and that truth is the first casualty of war, and they have won that battle. It's amazing how few people know the facts about this. I'm still fighting people on this. It's remarkable. You know, there's a YouTube video out, and it shows a meeting between Sheriff Ward and Ammon Bundy, and they're shaking hands here. It says finally meeting. No, Ammon's been meeting with him for months. Right.
That's exactly. In fact, he had reached out to the sheriff 2 days ago, and the sheriff just finally responded. But he spent hours with that sheriff prior to that. So truth has no place in what they're doing.
And this Sheriff Ward tries to put himself out as, oh, I'm a constitutional sheriff. Nonsense. When people send him emails, he turned all 4,000 of them over to the FBI.
Yeah. Yep. So, well, anyway, it is, it's something that they're deceptive, very much. So I haven't had a chance to watch anything on the news, the TV, so I have no idea how it's being played. But all I get the feedback is that the truth is not getting out.
No, it's totally not getting out. And what they like to play is on, well, it was an experienced judge. This was his last case before retirement. He has an excellent reputation. The jury found these people guilty. Yeah, because they weren't given any facts. It was a corrupt case. And no one is touching that. That's what's driving me crazy. If people knew those facts and why backfires are set, and that they actually saved land and saved their home and put out a fire that had been burning, 1,000 acres or more, the DA turned down the case.
Yeah. And we as citizens, when we allow this to stand, that's why we're here. We don't want this to continue, because if they do that here, they're going to do it to somebody. Well, they have. They do. They're kind here while they're oppressive over there. Then pretty soon they're oppressive over where they've been kind. And they're incrementally doing this, big thing.
Exactly. And it's not just the BLM. It's every one of these administrative agencies. They are rogue agencies, and they are completely and totally out of control.
Because they're not accountable to us. They're not under the power of recall. We don't elect them. And they have complete legislative power whatsoever that's backed up by the force of arms, the force of guns.
Well, the congressman from that area, LaVoy, you maybe didn't see him, but and I liked a little bit what he said, but man, he has not done enough for the Hammonds. And he said, the BLM can't come back and say, well, that's not the way that was intended. He says, they can't say that to me. I wrote that bill. I wrote that legislation.
Yeah.
They're going to do exactly what they want to do.
Yes. And so what I do, I in my own ranch is I'm just going to deal with the county and the state and just leave the Fed alone, because it's so hard.
Yeah.
I got to go to a meeting. I hate to run, but
okay, that's
very
fine.
good talking to you.
LaVoy, I've certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time tonight. And give Ryan my best. Don't worry, I'm going to rope him. I'm going to rope him some other week to give us another update on this. What's the outcome?
All right.
What do you see happening?
Well, we're going to be here till we can help these people get the resources back and stuff.
Okay.
Well, I really enjoyed meeting you, or not meeting you, but visiting with you. And so but I had better run. I need to go.
Awesome. Thanks so much, LaVoy. Appreciate you pinch hitting tonight. Thanks for all your
You're
input.
welcome.
We appreciate it. Take
All
care.
right, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we've just heard from Rancher LaVoy Finicum up there in Harney County. And that's a little bit different than what we've been hearing on the media. I'm just amazed. Are you? Absolutely amazed. Why is it when called protesting when you burn down a sitting, but anti-government when you try to get a sheriff to do his job? I just don't get that. And did you see the one? Eric Holder was actually involved in an armed takeover at Columbia University back in the day. You got to see that. Got to see that. And did anybody say, oh, yeah, Eric Holder did that? Yes, because they wanted the lounge to be called like the Martin Luther King Lounge or the, something like that. They it was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I want to share a couple of the facts about this because I want people to have some talking points. Not that people are talking about this. All I hear people talking about is the NFL. What's going on in the playoffs? It's absolutely amazing how out to lunch people are on all this. It's so overwhelming to them. It's just incredible. I'm going to check Skype now. People are leaving me messages. Oh, yeah. Michelle's been giving me this. There's another guy. Oh, the name Bundy is mentioned in the book called The Illuminati Bloodlines. And they are indeed in on this in one of many provocateurs in this massive, psyop, massive land grab. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's just crazy. And I feel bad for the Hammonds. I understand what they've been through. They have not done anything wrong. And this has kind of been silent. I don't know when this didn't first come on my radar until the Bundys brought it up. But I know they've been following it for a while. And the situation is that they asked Ammon to go away, to not come. And everyone says, well, why are they saying that? And believe me, this was a strategy by the feds. These people know how people tick better than we know how we tick. It's part of as our friend Frederick C. Blackburn would say, it's part of game theory. They know the reaction, before the event even takes place. And so what they've done to the Hammonds, I picked up on this right away, and it's been confirmed to me. They basically held a gun to their heads and said, tell Ammon Bundy to go away, and if you continue to talk to him, we are going to come and pick you up for prison sooner, and we're going to put you in less desirable prisons. Dwight Hammond is in his early 70s. He's going to be nearly 80 when they let him out. There's no getting a time off for good behavior in a federal prison. You do the entire sentence. And the fact that this is double jeopardy. Since I just mentioned Frederick C. Blackburn, you better be ready. I'm adding you to this call. Get your headset on, Frederick. I want to talk to you about this. And so that's exactly what they've been doing with this family. And then they got their attorney who works for the court to say the same thing. It's absolutely incredible that this family could be put back in jail. It's double jeopardy. They've already suffered. They had no right to do this. It's absolutely ridiculous that they're trying to do this. And here's the thing. It's not about the fires. We all know it's not about the fires. Those fires, if it was about fires, they'd have to arrest every rancher in the West. These are beneficial fires. They're called prescriptive burns, and they take care of inedible grasses. And so they've threatened these people. What the fudge? I mean, so in some ways, I don't blame them for not standing up because if they had a decent sheriff, they wouldn't have had to. And Clive and Bundy's recommendation to them was to have to turn themselves into the sheriff and have them put them in protective custody. And that's what they should have done. But the sheriff is completely bought and paid for. And I don't care how many lawyers come out and say, oh, he's a really good sheriff. And all the people say, oh, no, we all like Dave. We think he's a good man and all this kind of stuff. He's a good man, but he's a coward and he doesn't know the Constitution. Come on, Frederick, let's make this work. Okay, Frederick, are you with me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, and just you and not me, so that's good.
Yes. Evening. Fascinating interview you just had.
Well, thank you. It was funny. I got a hold of Ryan. I even said, Patricia, I'm not going to be able. I only set this up with him about an hour and a half ago. And he says, I'm not going to be able to do this. We're in a big meeting right now. And I said, well, when do you think you'll be free? I don't think I'm going to make it. And so he just handed the phone to LaVoy Finicum, who very graciously took over. And obviously he's up there, knows the ranching business, knows the BLM.
Going on, I'm going to have to listen to that about 3 more times before I figure out all the information that he packed into those few minutes. That was so much information in so little time, and he's like, well, I've got to go. Nice talking to you.
Yeah, they're having another big meeting, and nobody had eaten up there yet. And these are ranchers. I know Ryan Bundy usually gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he's in bed by 7, and so it's late for him not to have dinner. So I know what's going on. But listen, did you have a chance to see that Representative Greg Walden, the congressman? That's his area. He says the government goes onto private property all the time without permission and sets backfires. One time they actually burned down a guy's fence. Burned down the fence, and all they had to do was let it burn for a couple more minutes and have gone down to a natural water feature that was down there, and it would have put it out naturally, but instead they burned the man's fence down.
That's so ridiculous. As a kid who grew up on a farm, you just don't do things like that. You don't mess with somebody's fences.
The legislation in Oregon or in this county says it's a fence out state. That if your cattle, comes next door to my house and eats my petunias, then it's up to me to put a fence up, not you. But now they're making the ranchers pay for these fences that the government should be paying for in building themselves. It's just a huge land grab, and it's a very mineral-rich area. But what I wanted to talk with you about, Frederick, is the way the media has spun this so well to keep supporters away by having the Oath Keepers, but Stuart Rhodes say, oh no, they don't want us, we're not going to go there. That to me, I really, I love the Oath Keepers. Don't get me wrong. I love what they stand for. I love the group here in Las Vegas. I have great respect for them, but Stuart Rhodes, not so much. And especially after this, he's a Yale attorney. And the first time I heard that, I went, skull and bones. And he was a really disruptive figure at the Bundy Ranch thing. And I won't rehash all of that. But again, he's been a key person in keeping supporters away from this situation.
That's an interesting observation. I hadn't quite connected those dots. So you obviously have done a lot more background on this in that area than I have. So I'm really interested in hearing what you think is the master play here. It's like we see what they want us to see, and that, thanks to you, you're my inside person. You've got people on the ground feeding me the information, so I can say, well, that's very different from what I'm seeing from CNN or Fox News or, even RT. I mean, it's interesting that Russia Today has picked up this story. So I'm like following, what Russia Today is saying, what CNN's saying, and then, matching that against what you're saying with your people on the ground, with eyes on the ground. And that's so important for our, citizen patriot, intelligence network, if you will, that, we've got people eyes on the ground. What's different? So, you look at those differences, they say, well, what's the gambit here? What's the play they're making? What's the game theory behind this, and what's the end game? So I'm real curious to hear, but you've analyzed it. What's the end game? What are they trying to achieve here?
Well, to me, if you tell me if you see it this way, I see them as demonizing the Bundys in this militia group. They've been demonizing militia for a long time because they know they're young veterans.
City, that was all about demonizing the militia patriot movement. When you start looking at Oklahoma City, that's going down the rabbit hole. We could do a whole show on that, but it's just that demonizing the militias, demonizing the patriot movement. That newspeak of tagging a person like me as a domestic terrorist. because I protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's the game, right?
Right. Exactly.
So they're rebranding people like me, as a domestic terrorist, just like they did with, David Kokesh at Waco, just like they did with Timothy McVeigh, as the patsy for Oklahoma City.
Right.
So what are they trying this time? What do you see?
Well, again, they're demonizing the militia. They don't want anyone to find out the real truth about what happened at the Hammond trial and find out, they just said, well, they're arsonists. The jury found them guilty. The jury was never allowed to hear why the fires were set. Only did they set fires? If they set the fires, they're guilty. It was as cut and dry as that.
Right.
And they were never allowed to know what the punishment would be for that, what the sentence would be if they found them guilty. They were never allowed to know that.
Exactly. And that, for people who know my work, and I think we have a lot of crossover audience between your folks, your crew and my crew, so a lot of people, know my work about, analyzing non-cooperative game theory and how you're put into these no-win situations. And what they do with the district attorney's office is to block the truth from ever coming before that jury. I mean, that's the big strategy, is you keep the truth out of that courtroom so the jury has a very obscured view of what really happened.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on this, but I'm 90% sure they never held a grand jury. There was never a grand jury indictment against the Hammonds. That the Department of Justice just went and did this on their own.
Oh, I would be very interested in the logistics of, was it just a judge? Did it die in the DA's office?
Oh yeah, did the DA refuse to prosecute this case? He said there's no crime here.
And what was it they were saying about that DA has since resigned?
No, the prosecuting attorney.
The prosecuting attorney.
The federal prosecutor has since resigned.
And that was huge. When I heard that, I was like, okay, what? That's big right there.
That's very huge, and I'm glad to hear it. The case against Ted Stevens, for instance, Senator Ted Stevens, where the Department of Justice cooked up all this stuff against him. He was a well-respected long-term senator, whether you agreed with all his politics or not, but very highly thought of in Alaska. And they ran such the buzzsaw against him, and it's win at any cost. And one of the prosecutors in that case committed suicide.
Oh, when you start looking at this legalese of, the agenda and how they have corrupted the courts, and it's all about, like I said, keeping the truth out of the courtroom, keeping it away from that judge, keeping it away from that jury at all costs to win.
Right, and anything to win. They don't care, and so that's what the Hammonds are up against. I don't blame them for being frightened. I look back at the situation with Gordon Call. I don't know, Gordon and Yuri Von Call, and how what they did when they finally got to him, how they completely, brutally murdered him with an axe, chopped off his feet. I mean, just burned his body alive. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And again, the man was right. And Yuri Von Call is in prison today for friendly fire. They're accusing him of having killed an agent when the agent was killed by friendly fire.
Oh wow! So another like Pat Tillman type story.
Oh yeah, the Pat Tillman kind of stuff. Only Yuri Von Call's still in prison for this, and his father's dead, and brutally murdered by these animals.
But, I mean, it follows the pattern. Like, I always say in my shows, these people have a playbook that they follow. The names change, the set changes, but the storyline never changes. The methods remain the same.
Right.
And
so what's it going to take to shake this up? Right now, the Bundys are getting good coverage, but they're being demonized in the media. Different stuff saying, oh yeah, that the Bundys. Here they say they're so against the federal government, but yet they take these, and it's a complete 4 out of 5 of them are lies. We're not anti-government. We're anti-corrupt government. We're anti-corporation government. We're pro-honest government.
Exactly. We want the system to work as designed. You have corrupted the system. We're trying to fix that.
Yeah, I often think, I asked you what one thing, and you said that we're in a war. People need to know they're in a war whether they like it or not.
Exactly. That is the whole thing that people need to understand is every person on this planet right now, in my humble opinion, is at war, but it's a type of war like we've never seen on this planet before. It's called, the big fancy word for it is called fourth generation asymmetrical warfare. And it's basically just dirty tricks, undermining everything at every possible angle to create failed states. They don't want the system to work. They're trying to create failed states, and that's their end game. And that's what, we talk a lot about in my shows, on my program, The Breakfast Club. It's just, what is their modus operandi? How do they operate? What are their dirty tricks? They use the same things over and over again.
Well, they're doing every one of them now.
Yeah, and
they're running it, so they'll get you half truth, but they're anti-government. They're heavily armed militia, or they're hardcore militia. What's a hardcore militia? Would you tell me that? Is it like, well, he's a hardcore soldier?
What's an assault rifle? That's a marketing term.
Exactly. What's a softcore soldier then?
That's psychological warfare where you're shaming people.
Yes, exactly. And they're trying to demonize these people. Okay, right. I've got some information here that's pay attention, everybody. There's some information that's going to come out about Sheriff Ward beginning tomorrow. So pay attention. Pay attention to any news you hear on Sheriff Ward tomorrow. I that's all I can say about it for right now. So I want to thank my friend for putting that information out. So we're going to be coming up on a break here. Frederick, would you like to stick around? We're going to have Monica Huggets from South Africa joining us next. It's 6 a.m. in South Africa, coming up on 6 a.m. And she's going to roll out and join us and give us an update on South Africa. If you'd like to stay, and I'd love to have you.
And if nothing else, just listen in. That would be fascinating, because I always tell my listeners that if you want to see what's coming, look at South Africa, because that was the template. That was the test bed.
Absolutely. So many people have contacted me since I made that interview with Karen Smith, South Africa, past, present, no future, and they have said, "Oh, now I know what the end game is."
Right. Yeah. Look at South Africa.
Okay. I'm getting a little bit of wind or some kind of motion or something going on, like a fan noise or something from you, Frederick. And so maybe during the break we can figure that out and let that know. So why don't you tell people where they can hear you during the week?
Oh, okay. Let's do some self-promotion here. Shameless self-promotion.
Yeah, go ahead. Do it.
But anyway, my name is Frederick C. Blackburn. Most of you know me as Blackbird9 in the blogosphere. And I do a show called Blackbird's Breakfast Club every Wednesday evening, 8 to 10 p.m. on Radio Werewolf. And so I'd love for everyone to come out and join us. They've got a good crew out there. Newbies are always welcome.
Yeah, tough crowd in the chat room last night, man. They were dishing it out hard against the Bundys and had total disinformation. And so I was paddling upstream for as long as I could, and I finally said, "Hey, a man convinced against his will is still of the same opinion. I'm not going to get this guy." So fine, and you have to realize that chat rooms and stuff like this are heavily infiltrated. So everybody, hang on. We'll be right back with Monica Huggets.